farther than the boundaries that you and I know. It's everything we are and everywhere we go. Let the house of Israel say, let the house of Aaron say, let all who praise God say, let the house of Israel say, let the house of Aaron say, let all who praise God say.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Edinson. You know, I was getting ready to come here tonight, and Deanie said, "Can you pass me my lipstick from my pocketbook?" And I misunderstood, and I passed her a glue stick. She's still not talking to me. Good evening. I know there's a few of you saying, "Where is Alan? Who's that young guy up there?" For those of you who don't know me, I am Howard Silverstone. I'm also known in Cherry Hill as Debbie's husband. I'm going to be your MC tonight. And if you don't already know this, I'm also the chair of the Young Members Group. 1992. But seriously, I'm the current treasurer of TBS, and I'm also a forensic accountant, which means if there's anyone in here that hasn't paid for their ticket tonight, I will find you. Do you know, I got to share this with you. I've been a member of TBS for over 30 years. This is the first time I've been on this beamer that Alvin Stern has not told me where to stand or thrust a Torah in my arms. By the way, before we start, please remember to silence your cell phones out of respect for our speakers tonight. And if anybody has any problem understanding me or my humor, there is a translation available at www.tbsonline.org/we-invented-the-English-language. So Debbie and I recently became empty nesters. Thank you. And it was really quiet in the house. And I said to Debbie, you know, it's too quiet. She said, we need to get a talking parrot. You know, one of those talking parrots that will talk back to you just like your kids. I said, great idea. So I went to the pet store, and I said to the lady in the pet store, do you have any talking parrots? And she said, you don't mind me asking, but are you Jewish? I said, yeah, I am. She, follow me. So she took me back to the Jewish parrot section. I didn't know one existed. So she said, I got 3 parrots here that I think will interest you. She said, the first one is $500. I said, $500? She said, yeah. She said, the other parrots refer to it as the cantor. I said, the cantor? She said, oh, yeah. I said, can it talk? Talk? She said, this cantor can sing every Jewish prayer. Hineni, Kol Nidre. She said, see those fish over there? She taught them how to sing at something called the School of Fish. But never mind. Anyway, I said, 500? She said, yeah, 500. Great. She said, but let me tell you about the second one. That's a bit more expensive. She said, it's 1,000. I said, 1,000? She said, yeah. She said, the other 2 refer to it as the rabbi. I said, the rabbi? She said, yeah. She said, this parrot can really officiate at any Jewish life cycle event, gives the best sermon, and this parrot can remember the name of every customer that came in this store. I said, that's amazing. So that one's 500, that one's 1,000. What about this one? This one, she said, is $5,000. I said, $5,000? She said, yeah. I said, what does it do? She said, I have no idea. She said, it's been here 5 years, it's done nothing. Really? I said, does it have a name? She said, yeah, the other 2 refer to it as Alan Ettinson. So tonight we honor Susan and Arnie Baskis, Michelle and Jeff Levine, and Steve Ravitz. For those who received the Friday afternoon text from TBS, you will have seen this week's, which asked, "How does Judaism revitalize you?" I guarantee you that after hearing tonight the stories of our honorees, you will be revitalized by their leadership and their dedication. As many of you who know me may know, I've always looked up to Winston Churchill. And indeed, something Winston Churchill said is pertinent for us to begin our event tonight. He said, "The farther backward you look, the farther forward you're likely to see." Those we honor tonight, in looking backward at their achievements and what they have contributed to our community, gives us insight into how they have helped shape the future of TBS. Speaking of looking backward, I was talking to Debbie the other day, and I said, how am I going to take over from Alan Ettinson as MC of this event after all these years? And Debbie said to me, don't be too charming, don't be too witty, and don't be too intelligent. She said, just be yourself. You know, I recently found out that Alan was admitted to the bar in 1972. That's 6 years before I was allowed in a bar. Alan, your humor and your dignity throughout the events over which you've presided at TBS have said so much about you and what TBS is. We come together for so many of these events, and it's members like you who make us want to keep coming back. Thank you for setting such a high bar for someone like me to follow you. I'm truly honored. I'm truly honored to have been passed the baton from you. Thank you. Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall said, in recognizing the humanity of our fellow beings, we pay ourselves the highest tribute. The people who we honor tonight have also set the bar high to show us all how we should conduct ourselves and to be leaders, not just within the TBS community, but our community as a whole. Rabbi Noah Weinberg once said that people often avoid making decisions out of fear of making a mistake. In fact, he added, the failure to make decisions is one of life's biggest mistakes. Certainly, our honorees tonight could never be accused of avoiding making decisions. And it's precisely the decisions they have made that have enriched our community. And their dedication to TBS has had such a positive impact on all of us. In his 1951 book, The Rebel, the philosopher and author Albert Camus wrote that real generosity towards the future lies in giving all to the present. Susan and Arnie, Michelle and Jeff and Steve, just like those before them, have truly given their time and effort to the present so that we at TBS can continue to look to the future with such great optimism. Before we introduce our honorees, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank the co-chairs and others for all the hard work that's gone into tonight's event. Our special events chair, Rena Platt-Goldstein, our funds development chair, Shirley Fagenbaum, our sponsorship chair, David Gantz, our VP of fundraising, Drew Burek, our incoming special events chair, Isilda Jacobs, our audio guru, Steve Borenstein, our executive director, Ron Sophia, our director of engagement, Michelle Haseet-Waxman, and our director of congregational learning, Alex Weinberg. Thank you also to all of our sponsors and to our entire committee for tonight's event, all of whose names you will find on the TBS website. And of course, thank you to all of our co-chairs tonight, each of whom I will be introducing shortly. Let's have a quick round of applause for everyone that's been involved. So, just a couple of quick comments about some things I know about some of our honorees tonight. As you know, Arnie Baskers is a surgeon. And if you've been paying attention to a particular previous tribute event here at TBS, you may recall Alan Ettinson saying that if he didn't say something nice about Arnie, Arnie had threatened to remove his spleen. Alan, it's on YouTube. Sorry. Alan, if it's any consolation, at a recent TBS event, I was talking to Arnie and I told him I had some stomach issues. And I asked him if he had something for wind. So he gave me a kite. And then I said, no, seriously, I got this pain. Do you have something for my liver? So he gave me a bag of onions and a frying pan. More about Susan and Arnie in a few minutes. When I was asked to become TBS treasurer after Jeff Levine, I thought I would do some due diligence and find out about Jeff. I didn't really know him that well at the time. I asked a few people about his financial prowess, as he's the CFO of a well-known mortgage company, and they all told me the same thing. He has quickly made the business a $1 million business. The only problem is, before he worked there, it was a $1 billion business. As treasurer, Jeff and I have a lot in common. We're both CPAs. In fact, someone asked me recently, what's the difference between Jeff as a CPA in finance and you as a CPA in forensic accounting? And I told him it's simple. You'll notice when Jeff talks to you, he's looking at his own shoelaces. But when I talk to you, I'm looking at your shoelaces because I'm much more extroverted. I know, that was an accounting joke. You had to think about that one. More about Michelle and Jeff in a few minutes. In early March 2020, Debbie and I were walking around Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia, and we bumped into Steve Ravitz. He told us he'd recently made another move in the city, and we told him how much we loved the area. He put his arms around both of us and said, "You'll really love it here." That would be the last time we would see Steve. In the NJ.com commentary on Steve's passing, Susan Bass-Levin said, "Steve had philanthropy in his DNA, from his parents and now onto his children." Others, including Rabbi Peltz, said, "He was a very warm person. He loved to schmooze." Speaking of Steve and schmoozing, my mother moved to this area from England in 2006, and we immediately introduced her to the kosher experience. Whenever she would go there, Steve was standing by the door, greeting customers. My mother once remarked, "Isn't he a lovely man?" And then, in her inimitable British way, she said, "Does he do anything else there?" Before I introduce Gloria and Jerry Bear and Miriam and Doug Baskers, just a few notes, serious notes, about our first honorees. I found out recently that Susie and Arnie had moved to Cherry Hill from Needham, that's Needham, Massachusetts. How appropriate, because for all of us, didn't we need them? Most of you know this already, and you'll hear this again shortly. But Susan was a speech pathologist for Cherry Hill Schools for 25 years and has had many roles within TBS and its committees, including TBS president, chair of the school board, and so many others. Arnie is a surgical oncologist and has been active with the American Cancer Society for 44 years and recently served as the chair of the National Board of Directors of the Society. Steve Jobs once said that your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. It's clear to me and all of us that Susan and Arnie Baskis have done great work in everything they have done. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Gloria and Jerry Bear and Miriam and Doug Baskis.
Will everyone take out their sidors and turn to page 21? First of all, congratulations and mazel tov to Michelle and Jeff, and to Steve and the Ravitz family on being honored this evening. As for my parents, this too is an honor. Not really so much as for my parents, but for me. As you see, a few months ago, Temple Beth Sholom asked my parents who they would want as the chair people for the event. And my parents could have chosen my brother. They could have chosen my sister, but they chose me. And forget that rumor about a TBS policy stating that a chairperson must be a member of the shul. We looked into that. It is not true. I always knew I was my parents' favorite, but this honor as a chairperson means a lot to me, so thank you. What's that? I love you too, Mom. My parents grew up in observant Jewish households in the Bronx and in Chelsea, Massachusetts. And when they settled and raised the family here, they brought customs and traditions and a strong commitment and connection to our faith and to this shul. Keeping a Jewish home and cultivating a strong connection to their synagogue and to the state of Israel has always been and will always be part of their makeup.
Certain things in life are beshert, destined to happen, and very often become life-changing. You might say that's exactly what happened with Susie and Arnie in 1982, 40 years ago. Arnie had finished his medical training and had already accepted a position in Florida when he received a phone call from a South Jersey medical practice inviting him to come for an interview. He vacillated back and forth as to whether or not he should go on that interview, but after some family prodding, he did go, and the rest is history. It was beshert. They joined TBS the summer of 1982, and this shul immediately became their home away from home, their mishpacha. Many lasting and close friendships began right here.
They were part of the pilgrimage that walked the shul's Torahs over from Haddon Heights to this building. My mom served as president of the shul, which when we were kids was kind of cool. When my brother and I found out that our mom was named president, we thought we would get earpieces and black suits and be part of the first class of TBS's Secret Service to the president. They've traveled with TBS on trips to Israel, to Nashville, to Cuba, and they've sat on and led countless committees.
Susie joined Sisterhood and eventually became a treasurer of Sisterhood and then president. She chaired numerous committees, including the Rabbi Search Committee, TBS Speakers Forum, Rabbi Lewis's Tribute Dinner, served on the Long Range Planning Committee, was vice president of programming, and TBS president with her own Secret Service. Her involvement stems from a love of this synagogue, a love of Judaism, and a desire to teach her children and grandchildren the importance of giving back to the community. Susie has a very unique way of conducting a meeting, and when she was congregational president, of giving her Rosh Hashanah speech. She starts with a little song. Canticone, don't worry, she's not vying for your position. It is her unique way of getting you to notice, to pay attention, to recognize that what she's about to say is important, not because she is speaking, but rather that what she is saying is important because it is about this synagogue, this community which she loves so dearly. Susie emanates warmth. Anyone who meets her, even for the first time, is immediately drawn to her welcoming personality. Professionally, Susie was a speech pathologist for 25 years in the Cherry Hill school system, working in the early intervention program for preschoolers. She took pride, and rightly so, in having had a positive influence on not only the lives of the children, but their families as well.
You'd think that after sitting on or leading so many different committees and then becoming president, that maybe she would slow down, but nope. Susan still continues to sit on committees and the Shoals board, still partakes and brings one of our daughters to TBS's Cook for a Friend, which provides meals for those in need in the South Jersey area, and still loves to just walk into this building. As for Arnie, he served his entire professional career as a physician, helping people. And even today, in his so-called retirement, volunteers at a local clinic, sits on the board of the Israel Cancer Research Fund, sits on the admission committee of Ben-Gurion University's medical school, and is still active in the ACS as a former chairman of the board of the American Cancer Society. Recently, Susan and Arnie donated TBS's Passover Haggadahs in honor of their granddaughter and our niece, Maddie. This is a holiday that means so much to them, one where the family and extended family gets together.
Arnie took a particular interest in genealogy and has been able to trace his family roots to Eastern Europe, and in particular, the Ukraine. As he often does, he took his quest to the next level and hired an expert genealogist to travel to his ancestral town to gather some additional information. The shul that his family attended, and at which his grandfather was the shamus, was destroyed by the Nazis. The genealogy discovered that a number of Torahs from that shul was stored in the basement of the nearby church. That first rescued Torah was donated to TBS, and subsequently 9 more Holocaust Torahs have been rescued. A second one is at TBS, and the others have been donated to various shuls in the New Jersey, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and to the JTS. Pam was the first family member to read from that first rescued Torah at her bat mitzvah. 2 years ago, Sam read from that same Torah, and this coming December, Molly and Zoe will as well. Thus far, 3 generations of our family have read from that first rescued Torah, a great example of the resiliency of the Jewish people. Both Susan and Arnie are prime examples of a couple who has spent their adult lives sharing and contributing to make the lives of those around them a much better place.
My parents give and continue to give their time and service to this synagogue, to the community, and on behalf of myself and Miriam, Pam and Scott, Mike and Risa, and Jerry and Gloria, we are so genuinely happy for them. We hope this evening of tribute, a way to show respect, gratitude, and admiration, is memorable for you both, as it is a token of this congregation's thankfulness for your time and your service. We hope you enjoy this video.
The kinds of people they are giving, caring, and committed. Those are the words that come to my mind when I think about them.
Their entire MO has always been to help other people.
He should have the phone number 1-800-ARNIE.
They are the most upbeat, positive people I've ever met.
We'd call on him, everybody would call on him, and he never says no. 1-800-ARNIE.
They're humble. I think this is probably going to be very difficult for them. Everybody's speaking so highly of them.
When I got here to Cherry Hill, I met them on one of my first Shabbats here, and Susie walked up to me, never met her before, and she gave me the biggest hug in the world and said, "I'm so happy you're here." And for a young rabbi who was a little nervous, all the nerves went away.
She's been, I think, every committee. She could be president, she could be standing next to me making hamburgers for the social action program. She just loves it, and she's really dedicated her whole life.
Susan is a past president of TBS. Arnie has served on I don't know how many committees. They always understood the importance of bringing young families into the life of the congregation. And when she was president of the board, she did a great deal to bring some of those younger people onto the board.
In the summer of 2019, Susie and Arnie came with their whole family on our TBS Family Israel trip. And it was such an incredible experience and an incredible trip, and really so many memories that we made together there.
They are always envisioning their next trip to Israel. Because Judaism is so deep-rooted for them, it's when do we go back, or how many times have we been and when do we get to go?
Their commitment to Jewish life and Jewish living has truly trickled down to the way we've raised our family, the way Michael and Risa have raised their family, Dougie and Miriam, their family. Like, we all belong to synagogues. We celebrate the Jewish holidays. That's a huge testament to my parents.
Susan and Arnie are just present. They are, for Shabbat, they're so much a part of our Shabbat community at TBS. I have particularly fond memories of Susan on our trip to Nashville. We had a women's trip to Nashville in 2018, and she just always had a positive attitude. There were some early mornings, there were some, travel is not the easiest, and she just always sparkled and had a big smile and created such a positive vibe for everyone.
I think Arnie and Susan's commitment to family is just one of the most incredible parts of marrying into a family who loves family. I hit the jackpot. They live to see their family have moments of joy.
I think one of the highlights for us, as well as Arnie and Sue, as well as their friends, was when he was inducted as chair of the American Cancer Society. We all were in Atlanta. It was a big celebration, and it was really a magnificent honor, I think, for him.
Arnie, I've always been impressed by his incredible passion for important things like his work in cancer, his work in the community, but equally passionate about the trivial, his beloved Red Sox, and we enjoy so much having them over for Shabbat dinner because he gets so excited by a rotisserie chicken that it's an adventure.
One of the aspects that he's most proud of is literally freeing Torahs from some of what were the Iron Curtain countries and giving them to other synagogues.
Arnie has an incredible Judaica collection, and he's been very generous with that at the synagogue. We have 2 Torahs that the Baskis family has donated here to TBS that are both just beautiful, beautiful Torahs that we love to use and to teach from.
The Temple Beth Sholom Haggadah was really created with an impetus from them and has become a bestseller here in the congregation.
I think really the most special time that I spent with them, besides traveling in Israel with the whole family, is working on the Haggadah together. I mean, we sat down together and brainstormed how we can create a Haggadah that's useful for families with young children, with elementary and high school children, for adults as well, ways in which we can make it interactive, help make sure the type is readable, the content is engaging.
I went to their house a number of times to look at their Passover items, to see their Haggadot, but really to hear their excitement about Passover and their passion for this project, and to see what the Haggadah has become, going from this dream that we had of some commentaries to really a full Haggadah for the entire congregation has been amazing. And it happened because of their passion, their excitement, and their focus on this project.
I know that they wanted to make this for their family.
I think at their core, Susan and Arnie just care deeply about the Jewish people, and they care deeply about TBS. And they've shown that over the years, their generosity, with their commitment, with their attendance at Shabbat services and holidays and programs, and supporting us in so many different ways. And it's very clear that they've made a real impact on their children, on their grandchildren, and also on the children and grandchildren here at TBS as well.
Congratulations, Grandma and Grandpa. I love you.
Congrats, Grandma and Grandpa. We love you. Congratulations, Grandma and Grandpa. We love you so much.
in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. We're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know.
So this is presented to Susan and Arnold Baskis in recognition of outstanding service and dedication. Temple Beth Sholom, May 1st, 2022.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, beautiful. That one, Kathy.
That way.
The Bromberg chicken, by the way, is something you should all partake in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for those beautiful messages.
We're more than overwhelmed by these very, very heartfelt comments from all of you.
Thank you for bestowing this honor on us and for this magnificent evening and beautiful gift. The theme of tonight's tribute is to give thanks and to give praise. How fitting. We are so thankful to be part of this community and praise all the lay leaders and professional staff in striving to continue a legacy of Jewish learning and community.
Special thank you to our committee chair people, Jerry and Gloria Bear and Miriam and Doug. Thank you for your kind words and efforts in putting together this wonderful evening. To Roberta and Ida Bromwitz, to Roby and Bob Bloom, and to Lois and David Bromberg of the Bromberg Chicken. Thank you for your kind words. To the members of tonight's committee and the coordinators, Rena Platt, Shirley Feigenbaum, and Michelle Waxman, and to Mike Perlow, thank you for your time and effort in making this evening so memorable for our family. A special shout out to Emily and Milt Gottschalk, who reimagined, designed, and endowed the spectacular outdoor space and amphitheater that we almost got a chance to enjoy tonight.
To our children, Michael and Risa, Doug and Miriam, Pammy and Scott, thank you for your messages and support tonight and always. How wonderful it is to have our grandchildren, Josh, Sam, Seth, Molly, Zoe, Danny, and Lily, bless us with their joy and laughter, and Maddie, who will always be in our hearts. We are honored and proud to be in the company of these other honorees tonight. Mazel tov to Michelle and Jeff Levine, and to be honored along with our friend Steve Ravitz, Oliver Sholom, who have exemplified leadership and contributed their energy to make TBS a place we want to be a part of.
Susan and I were taught by our parents to be part of a kahila wherever we lived, to embrace our Judaism and all that it has to offer. We moved here from Boston in 1982. Our family, Jerry and Gloria Bear, were already members of TBS in Haddon Heights, so we had a hint that this synagogue would be a very good fit for us.
We got really lucky. Not only was the style of the service with Rabbi Lewis exactly what we enjoyed, but like Rabbi Lindemann, Rabbi Peltz, and Rabbi Wexler, they challenge us not just to listen to them, but they stimulate us to think and express our thoughts. The congregation welcomed us with open arms. It was just a perfect fit for our family. Our children, Michael, Doug, and Pammy, got their Jewish foundation and Hebrew education at TBS, and we had another place to call home. Our children were bar mitzvahed and confirmed here and became USY officers, and our grandson Sam was bar mitzvahed here. Molly and Zoe will follow in their footsteps this year. L'dor vador. Pammy and Scott were married on this bima.
We were fortunate and proud to be part of the group that raised the funds and built this building to provide a healthy future for our congregation. Through our 40 years of membership here at Temple Beth Sholom, we've made lifelong friendships with so many of you. The shul has provided us and our family with so much: an ethical framework and a cultural identity which have enriched our lives in so many ways. TBS became more than a place to renew our spiritual needs. It became our home away from home. The shul and its members became family, mishpucha, who also provide enormous support for us through good times and, when we need it, very sad times. We have so much to be grateful for. How fortunate are we to have clergy like Rabbi Lewis, Rabbi Lindemann, Rabbi Peltz, Rabbi Wexler, Cantor Cohen, and professional staff like Alex Weinberg and Ron Saphir.
Our clergy has been involved in our children's weddings, b'nai mitzvahs, funerals, shivas, trips to Israel, a trip to Cuba, services, classes, a trip to Nashville, concerts, and more trips to Israel. They teach us and they inspire us. Great things are realized when a series of small things are brought together. Through the years, we've enjoyed working with so many of you on committees and task forces, approaching problems from a variety of perspectives to find imaginative solutions. We are continuously impressed by the expertise, generosity, passion, ideas, and insights which our congregants have contributed. Like so many of you, we realize what a difference TBS has made in our lives. We are certain that you feel as we do, that we have received from the shul much more than we have contributed.
So, Susan, do we love TBS?
Do we what?
Do we love TBS?
Do we love it? For 40 years we volunteered. We shared our laughs, we shared our tears. President of Sisterhood, School Board 2, President of the Synagogue, just to name a few. So I guess we love it.
I suppose we do.
And I suppose we love all of you. It doesn't mean a thing, but even so, after 40 years, it's good to know. Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much.
All those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. Okay. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Go. Ooh, it's something magical.
Congratulations again, Susan and Arnie. In speaking to Stu Sklar, it's evident the impact that Michelle Levine has made upon everyone she meets. Said Stu, she's a genuine person. Everyone wants to be her best friend. Michelle has been chair of the Social Action Committee, has organized trips to the Ronald McDonald House, and is also described by Stu as a very good cook, which now explains every time when I've talked to Jeff about numbers and budgets, he always talks about the numbers being baked in. It all makes sense now. Jeff served as budget chair and then treasurer, and to his credit, that's an accounting pun, by the way, has stayed on with the finance committee. And Jeff, you've been an invaluable resource in the last 3 years. Thank you so much. For the last 3 years that I've been treasurer, Jeff has been to every finance committee meeting, comes with all his ledgers, and has just been such a great resource. Stu Sklar confided in me that Jeff is methodical and strict and has a budget for everything. My all-time sporting idol, Muhammad Ali, said that service to others is the rent that you pay for your room here on earth. In that case, Michelle and Jeff must have a heck of a rent bill. And I'm sure Jeff has a budget for that. It's now my pleasure to introduce Shira and Stu Sklar.
Howard, I think you and I might be watching the same show on Netflix right now, because I've been watching Bridgerton. I cannot stop doing this accent. Before I get started, first of all, Will Smith is not here, right? Okay. I do want to say, I want to say Mazel Tov to the Baskies and to the Ravitz family. We've been members here for a very long time, and you cannot be a member here and not know the amazing contributions that your families have made to the synagogue. So thank you so much. I do want to warn you that most people know not to give me a hot mic. Jeff and Michelle know that very well, so what follows is on them. I'm very excited to be here today to honor two of my absolute favorites. They have so much energy and enthusiasm. They are loyal and affectionate and lots of fun. Sometimes you can find them just enjoying some of life's simple pleasures, like a swim or a walk on the beach or a good meal. Every now and then, one of them will bark orders at you, and sometimes if you put your hand too close to his mouth, he will bite you. Wait a minute, what did I do here? This is a tribute to Chester and Parker Levine. They're dogs. I'm sorry, I grabbed the wrong. Okay. When I first learned that Michelle and Jeff were being honored at the tribute dinner, of course, my first reaction was to look at my wife and say, which ones are they? My wife said they're sitting across the table from us, so that was awkward. Shira and I have a long, storied history with Michelle and Jeff. In fact, I have to say sometimes it's gotten a bit awkward. You see, we met Michelle and Jeff before they joined TBS, and it didn't take long before it became clear to us that their primary focus in life was to emulate everything about us. If we had a kid, they had a kid. We had another kid, they had another kid. We got a minivan, they got a minivan. We were going to the Bahamas, and in the airport, who do we see? The Levines. We drove down to Myrtle Beach and stopped in North Carolina, and who's in our hotel? The Levines. We got a Havanese, they had to get a second Havanese. You're not going to believe this. We got a green trash can and a blue recycling bin. I drive by their house, they have a green trash can and a blue, I gotta say this in front of all these witnesses. You need to back off or I will slap a restraining order on you, okay? All right, there is an irony in what I say here, because I can think of no two people more worthy of emulation than Michelle and Jeff Levine. They don't need to copy us, trust me. They're doing fine on their own. They're very, very deserving of this award. They've contributed countless hours to TBS and amazing programs and amazing dedication to the board and the budget committee and the treasurer role. I mean, while we've been members for 20-some years, and they just blew right by us and have done amazing things for TBS. From the very beginning, they jumped in. They brought their high level of care and compassion and competence to TBS. They're making TBS a place where they want their kids to grow up, and in fact, they did that because their kids have grown up at TBS. They're role models to their children, to our children, to us, and to everyone lucky enough to know them. I took a leadership class here at TBS many years ago. I'll note that some people have to take a leadership class, and then there's Michelle and Jeff. They just jump right in. But I did learn in my leadership class that two of the most important traits of a leader are never asking anyone to do anything you wouldn't be prepared to do, and leading with humility. And Michelle and Jeff, they lead so quietly with such humility, but again, there they are, getting things done. Everywhere you turn, Michelle is there. She's at the Ronald McDonald House, She comes to cook for her friend. She's just at every activity. I mean, her dedication to the social action was and is truly amazing. They roll their sleeves up, they get it done. They just are willing to do what it takes. They live their life with a sense of responsibility for the community around them, and they get so much done. They do it with amazing positivity, intelligence, thoroughness. We're all really lucky to have them here. I'm going to let Shira say a word or two.
I will never forget the moment that I met Michelle. We were in the hallway at preschool dropping off our 2-year-olds for the first time, and the children were ushered into the classroom and the door closed behind them, and Michelle burst into tears. She was hysterical. And I later ran into her in the diaper aisle in Target, and we started chatting, and ever since then our families have just been intertwined. Their kids are like my kids are like their kids. They've done a really beautiful job in raising 3 beautiful young women. And we've been on vacations together, we've been through great times and some not so great times, and we just feel really, really lucky to count the Levines among our best friends. We feel very privileged on behalf of TBS to thank Michelle and Jeff for their many contributions to our TBS community.
And before, I just want to mention that, because I can't let her get the last word. You know, when you meet people, you don't know the impact they're going to have on you, and you don't often kind of stop to take note of that. But this is an opportunity for us to take note of the impact they've had on us, which has been amazing, but also on behalf of TBS to take note of the impact you've had to make this community a better place. So we're lucky to be up here thanking you, and that's what we're doing. Thank you so much for everything you've done and will continue to do.
When we think about leadership and we think about people like Jeff and Michelle, they model their values by what they give their time to. And we see them giving their time to helping others in our community, to helping us learn, to moving us forward. And that speaks to the kind of people they are. And they inspire other people to want to get involved.
They've always taught me to do the right thing, that even when no one's watching, like always just do the right thing. And I think that's really important in my life because I think they've just made me a good person.
My mom chose for her 50th birthday weekend, rather than spend it at home, to go visit my sister for her parents' weekend. My dad, who would have countless hours of work every day, but there are times that I would need help with, whether that be schoolwork or applications for colleges or jobs or even just to talk. He was always making sure to fit in the time.
They really are so kind, and they have raised just beautiful girls inside and out, and beautiful young women. I think that says so much about Michelle and Jeff and their values.
So I remember when I first came here in 2007, Jeff and Michelle were sending their kids to our ECEC, and Michelle was a frequent attendee at my Jewish parenting classes. We started off talking about Jewish parenting, the spirituality of Jewish parenting, staying one Jewish step of the holidays, and it evolved over the years to classes called Real Housewives of the Bible and Real Housewives of the Talmud. We had a wonderful group of women who learned about once a month, and we came together and spent time together there, and she was part of that group.
I had the privilege of working very closely with Michelle for several years when she was the social action chair, and to see her commitment to social action, to chesed, to helping both within the TBS community but also in the beyond, in the larger South Jersey Jewish community, and even beyond that, was really inspiring to see how she led the committee and came up with new project ideas and continued projects that the committee was already working on.
I went with my mom to a social action meeting one time, and it was, I think, one of her first meetings as the committee lead, but it was really cool to see all of the people that showed up for my mom to be able to lead this community in a way that's so impactful and to be helping others at the end of the day.
We were talking about the JFCS gift wish list program. So that is the program where they identify gifts that they'll need for the holidays. And then we help coordinate as a community to get gifts that we can then donate to those in need. And she had put so much work into this. She had an organized board. She had everything ready of the ways that she had done it, because it had been clear that this is something she had been doing for a long time and something she was passionate about.
My mom is a very selfless person, like in anything with our family, friends. And I think that her being the social action chair has very much brought that side out of her. She's always putting others before herself. And I think that's why she does what she does at TBS, because she loves helping others.
Jeff, of course, became involved as our budget chair and as our treasurer and brought so much wisdom and insight to our numbers. It's really hard to articulate what an incredible impact he had. You know, there's sometimes a saying that don't tell me your values, but show me your budget, because it's our budgets that actually play out our values. They allow us to have the resources that we need to accomplish our mission.
When Jeff was treasurer, he applied a tremendous degree of rigor to our budgeting process, our financial planning process. One of his strengths is explaining complex financial issues to people who are not finance professionals like me.
Jeff is able to present financials to the board as well as anybody I have seen. He has made me better at my job, and I owe him a debt of gratitude for his time and effort during his role as treasurer and budget chair here at TBS.
We had a very generous congregant a number of years ago that made a meaningful contribution to help pay down the mortgage. Jeff had the foresight to help us re-amortize our mortgage and put the money we saved with that in a savings account that has grown over the past 5 or 6 years, and today is really positioned us well, especially going into the uncertain times of COVID, and now is even providing relief in the last few months of our mortgage.
He and I would have many conversations about the schools and giving the voice behind the numbers. And that was really important to Jeff. It's not just about, dollars and cents. It's about what we're doing in our mission and how our budget really speaks to the values of Temple Beth Sholom. And he helped keep us focused on that.
TBS is in very good financial shape, which a lot of other Jewish organizations like us aren't able to say, and Jeff has played a big part in ensuring that.
He's not in the top 1% of CVS coupon savers for nothing. He's taught me a lot about money management. Within 48 hours of receiving a full-time job, he sent me a very detailed budget of how I can allocate all of my finances for the next year. He's very creative with his little holes and pockets of where he can find extra cash.
The best life lessons I've probably learned are to be kind to others, because kindness will take you very far in life. It costs $0 to be kind, so that's always the best way to live.
When I think of Michelle and Jeff, I really think of their deep sense of chesed, their deep sense of kindness, and it's more than kindness, it's really a loving kindness that they have instilled in their children and that they've shared with this community for so many years and certainly have shared with me. One of my favorite lines in the book of Psalms is Olam Chesed Yibaneh, that we will and we must build this world through chesed, through loving kindness. And I think in a world which oftentimes feels all too bereft of chesed and kindness, it's thanks to people like Michelle and Jeff who are those shining lights for us, reminding us to always turn to kindness, because that's the way that we must build this world moving forward.
Please welcome Michelle and Jeff Levine.
This gift is presented to Michelle and Jeff Levine in recognition of outstanding service and dedication to Temple Beth Sholom.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you to all of you. When Michelle and I learned we had been selected to be honored this evening, we were deeply moved and humbled. Being here tonight, we are overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. Congratulations to Susan and Arnie Baskies. And to the Ravitz family, Steve was a pillar of our community, and his loss was felt to all who knew him, and we are pleased he could be honored here tonight. His legacy inspires us all to do more. It's truly beyond humbling to have been honored alongside such an esteemed group of individuals. We also wanted to thank the TBS clergy and staff, along with our committee chairs, Sherritt and Stu Sklar, as well as the Tribute Committee, our family, and friends. We are beyond grateful for all of you and appreciate all you have done to make tonight possible. Our family came to TBS 14 years ago, knowing we wanted a synagogue where our children could learn, grow, and cultivate relationships with other Jewish children. What we found was a community that welcomed us with open arms and was easy for us to assimilate into. It's no surprise to anyone in this room that our clergy and senior staff are the best in the business, and they were pivotal in transforming us from new congregants to involved members. We soon discovered just how easy it was to get involved, which was surprisingly fulfilling in ways that neither of us would have suspected. Personally, I had been somewhat active in synagogue life and BBYO when I was younger, but had not yet determined what type of role synagogue life would play in my adult life. We had joined TBS when our oldest, now 22, was entering 3rd grade. I can remember attending services prior to joining and hearing the rabbis talk about the bat mitzvahs family and their involvement at TBS. I clearly remember wondering if the clergy would even know our names by the time we got to that stage. And fast forward several more years, and they did. My involvement started with Young Members Committee, and I am grateful to Jill Hamill for reaching out and including me on the steering committee. I still think our 80s night will go down as one of my most memorable TBS nights. Through my involvement, I was able to create meaningful relationships and friendships with both fellow congregants and clergy. From ECEC to Young Members Group to Men's Club to Board of Directors and Treasurer, involvement just found me and can honestly say has left a positive impact on my life. Michelle and I feel blessed to have found TBS, and both believe we have gotten way more out of TBS than what we put in.
The first time I was called upon to participate in the TBS experience was during our youngest daughter, Kenzie's first year of preschool. I was invited by another mom to the Real Housewives of the Talmud discussion group. If I'm being honest, I went because I felt guilty saying no, as I had just dropped my child off at school and had nowhere to be. Studying Talmud with Rabbi Peltz and this group of interesting, intelligent women energized me in a way I never expected. I remember being in this room with other moms, feeling out of my comfort zone, yet feeling completely comfortable at the same time. It was then I realized that spiritual growth and education were not only for children. I also realized that it is not easy to say no to our amazing clergy staff and lay leaders when asked to serve. I soon joined the Social Action Committee, figuring that my social work background and propensity for community service would make this group a good fit. A few years later, I agreed to chair this committee, and while I found this to be a very rewarding experience, I would be remiss to not mention that equally rewarding were the relationships created with our clergy and staff, as well as my committee members and volunteers that enriched every experience that I've had through my TBS involvement. I was fortunate to have had these fulfilling moments as the Social Action Chair. We have also been blessed to celebrate many family milestones here, such as the bat mitzvahs and confirmations of our daughters. We are lucky that we and our children have cultivated lifelong friendships here at TBS. But equally important in making TBS feel special to us are the smaller moments. The Shabbat Shalom greetings from Bob, our security guard, on a Saturday morning, the high holiday phone calls from our dedicated board of directors, the friendly conversation with the woman I just met at Sisterhood Bingo, the mom commiserating with me after I dropped my toddler off from preschool at the first time. When I reflect upon what has made TBS hold such a special place in our hearts, it is a perfect combination of these big and small moments. This evening, for sure, is a big one. Jeff and I want to thank all of you from the bottom of our hearts for this special honor. Thank you.
We are gifts and we are blessings. We are His story in song. We are hope and we are healing. We are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories. We are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. The door vador nagid golecha. The door vador, we protect this chain from generation to generation. The door by door, these lips will praise your name.
During the recent Passover holiday, Debbie reminded me of the time just before Passover many years ago that she was admiring a Passover plate at ShopRite. Steve Ravitz picked it up and gave it to her. "Here, it's yours," he said. Debbie offered to pay, but Steve would have none of it. "Enjoy it with good health," he said. We take that plate out every Passover, and it's taken on new meaning for us since Steve's passing. I spoke to Debbie Ravitz a couple of weeks ago, and she echoed what I think we all know. Everyone in the community was touched by Steve. I saw a note from a lawyer friend of mine in Philadelphia who had commented on Steve's passing, and I asked him how he would have known Steve. He said, "Are you kidding me? He was the mayor of Rittenhouse." When I was first on the board of TBS many years ago, Steve was the immediate past president and became an invaluable mentor to me, with many a conversation in the TBS parking lot after our board meetings. And you know what I noticed the most about Steve? He listened. Indeed, our 30th US president, Calvin Coolidge, said, "It takes a great man to be a good listener." And as we all know, Steve was a great man. It's now my pleasure to introduce Debbie Ravitz and Lauren Ravitz.
Good evening.
We'd like to begin by congratulating our dear friends, Michelle and Jeff Levine, as well as Susan and Arnie Baskis on their well-deserved honors. Thank you so much for your outstanding commitment and service to TBS over the years. Mazel tov to you all. Dad is what our father-in-law wanted us to call him. As soon as we were engaged to his sons. When we immediately shifted from calling him Steve to Dad, his typical grin became even bigger. He welcomed us, even before we were engaged, with love and open arms. His love of family was all-encompassing. He would burst with pride whenever he was in the presence or speaking about his children, Jason, Sean, Brett, Remy, and David, or his grandchildren, Amanda, Sophie, Luke, Andrew, Jesse, Haley, Jordana, and Dylan. And of course, he would have been overjoyed with his namesake and newest granddaughter, Skylar. It brought him great pleasure to spend quality time with his grandchildren. He made a point to form a special bond with each of his grandchildren, whether it was watching them play sports, taking his girls on a shop with Pop, enjoying the beach in Margate, or taking them out to dinner. Poppy Steve surely loved to be with family.
Besides being a devoted father, grandfather, son, brother, and uncle, Steve had many passions. He was a sharp businessman, a community activist, a racehorse lover, and a Philadelphia connoisseur. His community commitments are far too extensive to list, but TBS stood out as Steve's home away from home, and like his own family, TBS brought him much fulfillment. After a trip to Israel with Rabbi Lindemann in 1997, Steve felt a deeper connection spiritually to Judaism. As a result, he became much more active at TBS, developing relationships and taking on numerous positions. He was a member of the Endowment Committee, the chair of the Torah Endowment Fund Campaign, and vice president of the board. He served as president of TBS from 2005 to 2007. Steve also spearheaded the search committees which ultimately hired Rabbi Peltz, Cantor Cohen, and Eric Jacobs as executive director. Besides all of the impressive positions he held, the personal impact Steve made on TBS was most noteworthy. In 2007, he helped bring students from Israel to TBS for a wonderful and memorable visit. Anonymously, he helped congregants through his own generosity and the Ravitz Family Acts of Kindness Fund to pay their dues, help students travel to Israel, and support initiatives with Masorti, the conservative movement in Israel. His travels with his TBS family included many trips to Israel and one to Cuba, led by his close friend and confidant, Rabbi Lindemann. While overseas, Steve never visited a social service agency without leaving a meaningful donation.
What is most amazing is that every single person in this room or watching this live stream has been touched by Steve in some way. Everybody knew Steve, whether from his friendly smile while shopping at ShopRite, his participation in community philanthropies, his interactions at TBS, or even from your favorite local restaurant or bar. Steve made a difference in all of our lives. Everyone has a memorable Steve story to share. But I think the Steve story that is most remarkable is that he would do whatever he could to help someone in need, even a complete stranger. We, as Steve's family, were not even aware of most of the support he gave to so many. Instead of the material things in life, giving is what made him feel complete. Steve was a true mensch and a role model to us all. We love and miss him every single day. And now, please enjoy this special video tribute for Steve.
There are many people who will give when you ask. There are fewer people who will come forward before you ask. Steve was the guy who came forward before.
My father once told me, you can never go wrong doing the right thing. I still hear him saying that to me.
Even to this day, you know, when we're talking about my dad, they're talking about him with such love. It makes me feel good to talk about it because it makes me remember the person that he was and the impact that he could have on so many people.
My daughter Skylar is named for Steve, and I know that he is living on within her and through her, and she also just wants to make everyone smile, and she brightens our lives just like my dad did.
He enjoyed being with people. He enjoyed just being on Rittenhouse Square. It was a part of who he was, showing his personality, and he had so much to give. And that's what he just loved to do.
Even as a kid, we would walk into Ponzio's, and a lot of people would know him, but it wasn't that. He knew them, and he knew them by name.
He knew how lucky his kids were and his grandchildren, and he always lived that life of wanting to pay it forward, to take care of other people that didn't necessarily have the opportunities or were afforded the opportunities that he had.
I've learned a ton from my dad over the years, and a ton has stuck with me. I think the biggest thing for me is work ethic. Work ethic and family. Just huge parts and foundation of who I am.
The core values he instilled in us was family comes first, no matter what. Family has each other's backs, no matter what.
As we became adults and my brothers and I came into the business, my dad he changed as a person. He got involved in the synagogue, became president of the synagogue.
We would be in a staff meeting. He would come in, and he would come in and join us, and we were just so excited to see him. He always brought a sense of joy, a sense of celebration when he was here.
TBS has always been so important in our lives, and regardless of what was going on, TBS always felt like home. Still to this day, when I walk in that building, I can feel my dad and I can feel his presence because of what it meant to him and what it means to all of us.
He was very close and looked at Rabbi Lewis like a mentor, looked at Rabbi Lindemann as a close friend and confidant.
Boy, how fortunate we are to have had Steve Ravitz as a past president. How I will remember Steve Ravitz is for his kindness and his generosity.
Before each trip to Israel that I took with his children or grandchildren, he came to my office. He said, "Where are you visiting?" Say the Jaffa Institute or Lekut Israel or one of these great tzedakot in Israel that do great things for people there. And he'd say, "Take $1,000 from the Ravitz Fund, present it there as tzedakah, but here's the catch. I want my grandchild to present it because I want them to learn what it means to give tzedakah." That, in a lot of ways, I think really sums up who Steve was. Not only was he generous, right, but he was committed to passing on that generosity and that legacy to his children and his grandchildren.
There was nobody in the congregation who traveled with me more than Steve has traveled with me, to whether it was to Israel or to Eastern Europe, but Israel most of all. I think we probably took 6 trips together at least, and it may be more than that. There is no time that we went to Israel that Steve did not go with tzedakah money in his pocket, which he would give in various places for that special individual that needs extra help or assistance.
When my grandfather passed, my dad was moved spiritually in many ways, and the synagogue was here for him, and he's had a very special relationship with Rabbi Lindemann. They were very close, one of my dad's deepest friends, and that came out of just hours and hours of work as well as just friendship that was created through that level of work. My dad was always passionate about leadership positions, and he liked being in charge, but he was in charge because he wanted to help. He thought he could make things better. And I would say most of the time when he left an organization, it was better than when he got there.
I think what always really struck me about Steve was his neshama, was his soul. He just loved life. He had a joy for life. He had a joy for being in community and being with other people. I remember that he would oftentimes just find his way back into where the clergy offices are. I don't know if anyone ever let him back there, but he ended up back there. And he would always spend time with Rabbi Lindemann, with Rabbi Peltz and Cantor Cohen.
He was motivated by seeing other people happy. That was his motivation to always be generous and to give and to make people laugh.
The other thing, too, that I really admire about Steve is determination to put together the kosher experience. We can get pretty much any kind of kosher food that we could need here in Cherry Hill. Is something that I think is a really important service that we have for our community, for our shul, for the broader community as well. And that was really due to his commitment and his vision.
I think when he opened the first kosher experience, this light kind of went off in his head and his connection got really deep in a good way. And when we were able to open on the other side of town too, I mean, he was so proud and so happy. The Ravitz Family Foundation meant the world to my dad. It started with my grandparents, and my dad and my uncle. They were able to bring it to a level that I don't know that anybody expected. If my dad were here today and see what we're doing and how we're doing it, I think that he would just be super proud.
I'm just so thankful to have a dad who was thoughtful, caring, and really, really, really loved the community and loved the people around.
There's no question he's fulfilled the legacy that he set out to do. His heart was full to the very end. He left a big shadow for all of his children and grandchildren that we sit behind, but I think we're all proud of that.
These last couple years have been hard since Steve passed away, certainly for the family, for us as well. But what's been a silver lining in all of it is seeing how Sean and Debbie and Brett and Lauren and Jason and the whole family have really stepped up to pick up Steve's legacy with ShopRites, with the Ravitz Foundation, at TBS, at the JCC, and the community. I think the way in which Steve taught his children about what it means to be a member of the Jewish people and what it means to support the community has definitely gone through. It's really beautiful to see the way in which they have continued to carry on his legacy.
Please welcome the Ravitz family.
Teach your children well. Their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams.
So this gift is a little different. On behalf of TBS, we are presenting a piece of furniture that will be in the lobby that will be a bin for food donations, which we know was a passion of Steve's.
And it says, presented in loving memory of Steve Ravitz in recognition of outstanding service and dedication to Temple Beth Sholom.
You're good. You're up. On behalf of our family behind me and family, 2 rows of family right there, and just want to say thank you to the community, and even more in a micro way to the members and people affiliated with the synagogue that are here tonight. The last couple years have definitely not been easy, but our father would, those of you that knew him would know that, and we've all said it before, that in light of the health crisis of the last couple years, that he would want us to put our heads down, get to work, and lead the greater community at large out of the mess that we were all in, and that's what he would have wanted. And I want to thank, and we want to thank this building and the people that have been before all of us and will be after. Two things that our father lived for that I think both have been mentioned was purpose, live a life with some kind of purpose, and then number two, legacy. Legacy was important to him, but not in materialistic type ways. It was in that legacy, you heard the song Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, L'Adore Vador, that type of legacy. And thank you to this synagogue for giving him a way to live out both of those two most important characteristics that he prided himself in, purpose and legacy. And thank you for all your support from our family for the last couple of years. Your messages, checking in with us from friends far and wide have helped us get through this surreal and unreal situation that's gone on. Thank you very much.
So first, congratulations to the other honorees, the Baskis and Levines, your dear friends of our family, at different generations, but your passion for TBS has been contagious and your honor is well deserved. So we're so proud of all you do and have done at TBS, and we're proud to call you our friends. And Arnie, so quick, I'm going off the rails here real quick. You're wearing a kippah right now because you forgot your kippah. You did, right. Well, so I saw in the video there was a picture in front of Yad HaKashish in Israel, in Jerusalem. And so the kippah you're wearing is actually commissioned there. And it's on the back, if you look, it says The Kosher Experience, which my dad had commissioned. So his last little thing that he did, the joke that he pulled on all of us as honor for all of us. And if you're wearing palm trees on your kippah, that's from David's bar mitzvah. So yes, so Ron, incredible job. I got choked up when I walked in. I thought it was like a really cool thing. So those are Steve's kippot in the bin today. So we just got back from a special weekend in Michigan watching Amanda graduate. It's a tradition to wear your favorite maize and blue it's a tradition to wear your favorite maize and blue and big giant M's to honor the graduates at the ceremony. So as some of you may know, I've got a thing with the big yellow M. I'll leave that for no offense to Rabbi Peltz and any other Wolverines out there. Well, maybe some offense. It's a weird sports thing. So what was I to do? I didn't exactly have a huge wardrobe like the rest of the Michigan faithful. But what I did have was my dad's Michigan hat. Big yellow M and all. So I proudly sat there amongst the thousands with a piece of Poppy Steve joining in the celebration of his Manders. I felt his presence among the thousands in the big house with that big, proud grin, his face really red, because he was happy. And I felt it, I really did. And we all have those moments. The most amazing part of our dad's legacy is he somehow left all of us with piece of him. Whether if it's a physical material thing, or it's a special memory or place, or it's some random act of kindness that you were a part of, it's been over 2 years, but his memory remains as strong as ever. And everyone, as we've heard, has a Steve Ravitz memory. When Steve passed, the world was in a much different place. We never imagined having a small funeral and a Zoom shiva in memory of our dad. There was definitely a void through that experience that you can't explain. And I know my dad, in all of his humbleness, he would have loved a big funeral. I'm not kidding. Not that he would expect it, but he would have loved it. So when talking to both rabbis privately, we all agreed at some point that we would do something to honor his memory and many contributions that he made to the synagogue so that so many could get together, both here and online, and pay the respects, a void that we all had to suffer through. So we gather here tonight in a place where my dad truly called home. A piece of him will always be here. We will always see him sitting in that seat. right in front of Ed Coe, right over there, second row on the aisle. He left his mark in so many ways here, and it's only natural we honor him. It feels special that we have filled this room with the love and community in mind, and we are finally physically present to honor a man who gave so much to so many with asking very little in return, other than to continue to be kind to one another and give of oneself, and most importantly, have fun doing it. Brett and I were talking about the fact that the honors and accolades he's received, been recognized for, it was about him, but truly it's about the journey that we honor. His struggles with mental health, his successes and failures in business, and the countless selfless acts that made him the man he was. So, on behalf of our family, we are humbled tonight by the show of support, and we gladly accept the award in his memory of our beloved father, grandfather, brother, and friends. Thank you.
The children well, their father's help did slowly go by, and feed them on your dream, the one they fix, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. And you of tender years.
Before we close this evening, I just have to share a couple of things that Rabbi Lindemann shared with me in a conversation I had with him about Steve recently. Rabbi Lindemann mentioned to me that on several occasions after morning minyan, occasionally there would be a penny laying on the floor, and Steve would pick it up. And Rabbi Lindemann asked him, why are you picking up a penny? And Steve said, my father's favorite song was Pennies from Heaven, and I feel this is a way that he's looking down on me. And speaking of looking down on people, Rabbi Lindemann also shared that in his office, he has a photo of Steve, and he has it on a shelf just above head height. And Rabbi Lindemann always feels that Steve is looking down on him. Congratulations again to all of our honorees this evening, to Susan and Arnie Baskis, to Michelle and Jeff Levine, and to the Ravitz family for having shared Steve Ravitz with us and enabling him to have contributed so much to our congregation and community. Something else Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Our honorees tonight have given so much to TBS and the community, and all of our lives have been enriched by them. And I couldn't let this evening end without repeating something that was said by Her Majesty the Queen. She said that in times of doubt and anxiety, the attitudes people show in their daily lives, in their homes, and in their work are of supreme importance. Nothing exemplifies this more than what we have heard tonight. Thank you all again for attending, and please stay for dessert, which will be served in our multi-purpose room. Thank you again.